In 2021, I sat down with my journal and I drew a simple picture, a little sketch of a man standing on a stage in front of an audience with the lights, standing on a red dot. That red dot was the famous red carpet from TEDx. And in July 2025, I stood on a TEDx stage and delivered my very first TEDx talk. Now, the really interesting thing is the photo that they took that day is almost identical to the picture that I drew 4 years ago. And here's the thing, I didn't just want it, I assumed it every single day. And everything changed the moment that I picked up a book from 1952 and read one sentence that stopped me completely. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how that book helped me achieve my wild, ambitious dream. Hi, I'm Ricky Locke. I'm a TEDx speaker, confidence coach, and magician. And here's what most of us do when we have a really big goal. We write it down, we make a vision board, we set the alarm earlier, and then we tell ourselves this year is different. But then nothing really kind of shifts. Not because we're lazy and not because the dream is wrong, but because we're approaching it completely backwards. Most advice out there focuses on actions, the plan, the system, the hustle, and even the consistency. Now, none of that is wrong, but there's something missing, something that sits underneath all of that. And here's the truth, because this took me years to understand. Your actions follow your assumptions, and if your assumptions haven't changed, then your actions are just noise. There's a book published in 1952, written by a man called Neville Goddard. It's called The Power of Awareness. And there's one sentence in that book that I've circled back to more times than I can count. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not wanting the feeling and not visualizing the feeling, but assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. What that means is that's about you stepping fully inside the version of you that's already achieved this dream. And then Neville says something else in the book that completely reframes the way we think about our goals, our ambitions, and even our dreams. All of it. Leave the mirror and change your face. Leave the world alone and change your conceptions of yourself. Think about that. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to change the reflection, the job, the relationship, or even the bank account, the confidence. But we're attacking the mirror. And Neville says, stop. Change the face looking into it. Change your assumption of who you are, and your reflection has no choice but to follow. In the book, he has this wonderful passage. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled until your assumption has all the sensory vividness of reality. Sensory vividness, he's not talking about a vague wish, but he's talking about something so real, so specific, so felt that your nervous system starts treating it as a fact. And that's what I did. Every single morning and every single evening, I assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I experienced the feeling as if that dream had already been achieved. Let me show you exactly what that looked like. So that drawing in 2021 that I drew, which is a massive dream of mine to achieve the wonderful dream of being a TEDx speaker, standing on that famous red dot. After reading Neville's words, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, I then started to play the movies in my mind. So in 2021, when I drew that little sketch, dream of that massive dream, instead of just writing it down and then hoping it would happen, I actually started to do it. Every morning and every evening, I would close my eyes and play a movie in my mind of that dream already achieved. I would notice what it was like to walk out on that red dot, experiencing the audience going absolutely wild with applause, and even to what I was wearing day in, day out, and assuming that feeling of it already being achieved. To make that stick in my mind even more, I even found a photo that I put on my vision board, and I photoshopped a picture of me in front of the TEDx letters from me speaking at another gig, and I could visualize that process of what it would be like walking out with those famous red letters behind me. And then in October 2024, the application process started. Now, I've recorded a little video over here that goes into a little bit more details about the process if you're interested about applying to be a TEDx speaker, and you can find that link for the video in the comments down below. But after the idea started to come to me in October 2024 and the application process and 7 months of practicing and coaching, in July 2025, I achieved that dream of walking out onto that famous red pizza carpet and delivered my very first TEDx talk. And if you look at that picture that I wrote in 2020 and 21, that's the image that I've been staring on my wall for years. And then on the right side, the actual photograph that they took on the day, that angle, the light, the red dot, my arms are like almost identical. I mean, like one of them is kind of down, so it's kind of like a teapot sort of thing. However, it's pretty much almost identical. Now, I didn't direct that photographer and I didn't even plan that shot. That was just what happened. Isn't that bizarre? And here's the one that still gives me a little bit of chills. During my talk, completely in flow, I put my fingers out like this, 4 fingers expressed, completely in flow. Can't remember why I did it at the time. But if you look at my vision board picture, there's 4 fingers. Now, Neville Goddard would say that is not coincidence. That's your mind executing the movie that you gave it. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled until your assumption has all the sensory vividness of reality. I'd given my mind that vividness every single day, and then my mind delivered it. Now, obviously, that movie that I was playing in my mind was part of it, but the other part was the affirmations. And I want to be really specific here because this really matters. Every morning, I had this pink piece of paper every single place in my house, by the door, by the fridge, and even by my bedside table so I could look at it before I went to bed. And I would read this message out loud every single day. I'm so happy and grateful walking off stage after delivering my first TEDx talk. And to credit my mentor, Jack Canfield, as well as Neville Goddard, those words I am are the most powerful words that you can use. Because what follows I am, your subconscious part of your brain treats it as an instruction. So the practice was this. Every single morning, I would say that affirmation out loud, spoken, written, and even felt. Then I'd close my eyes and I'd play that movie of that dream already achieved. What would I notice about? What would I see, hear, or feel? All of the lights, the carpet, the noise of the audience, and me walking off stage. What would that look like? And play that movie in my head every morning when I wake up and every evening just before I go to bed to plant into my subconscious the last thing that I was thinking about. And this was repeated every single day because Neville was really clear on this. It's the persistence that does it. You assume the feeling, you maintain the assumption, you persist until that movie becomes a reality. So for some people out there, you might be thinking, what's actually happening when you do this? This isn't spiritual theory. This is how your brain is wired. There's a system in your brain called the Reticular Activating System. Think of it like a filter. Right now, there's thousands of bits of information and signals going around. Your brain just can't simply take it in, otherwise it would implode. The Reticular Activating System decides, the RAS decides what actually gets through. Here's the simplest way that I could explain it. Right now, you're not thinking about your right foot. Oh, but now you are, because I pointed to it. That's just your RAS being redirected. When I spent every single morning playing that movie in my mind and sharing those affirmations out loud, my brain started to say, well, Ricky keeps talking about this crazy idea. He's not giving up on this. Let's help him out. And that's when all of the information started filtering around, such as opportunities, ideas, and even, if you've seen the TED Talk, the box that I have on stage, that came from me doing this work, and that led me to point to one of my good friends, a magician, to say, look, I need a box that I need to use for a metaphor for the trick. Can you help me out? So when you do this over and over, every single morning, every single night, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, extraordinary things start to happen. So you might be wondering, how do you apply this for your own dream or your own goal? Well, it's in 3 simple steps. Step 1, assume. Don't just want it, but assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Write down your dream, not as a wish, but as a fact. Use the words I am, not I want to be, not one day that I will, but I am. I am so happy and grateful that I've now lost 5 stone of weight. Or I'm so happy and grateful that I've now achieved £1 million in my business. That'd be nice. But get really specific. What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And even what does it even smell like if it was already achieved? Step 2, play the movie every single morning and every evening. Every morning before you check your phone, close your eyes, play the movie in your mind, say the affirmation out loud, step into that outcome. First person, present tense, sensory detail, feel the vividness of it being real. Then every evening, just before you're about to go to bed, play that same movie and that same feeling over and over. That's the daily work. Step 3, persist and don't waver. This is the bit that most people stop. They do it for like a week and then they stop. Neville was really clear. You persist in the assumption until the outer world catches up. Not because you're delusional, but because you're training your brain to find the path that already exists. From 2021 to 2025, that was 4 years. Every single morning to every single evening, I just did that over and over. And then one day, it wasn't the movie anymore, but it was a fact. So I'd like to think about something. In 2021, I drew that sketch with a few tears stained on it as well through the crazy lockdown that we had. Now, I didn't grind my way to that stage and I didn't hustle harder than anybody else to get there, but I just assumed my way there. I assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I gave my mind the instruction. I gave my mind the feeling of it already being done. And then my brain started to open up the filters in the Reticular Activating System to help me find all of the actions and the opportunities that I needed to make that dream become a reality. So I'm curious, what is one sketch that you haven't drawn yet, or one dream that you're still calling embarrassed? Draw it, assume it, play that movie every single morning and every single evening, and just watch what happens. Now, if this resonated, then share this video with one person who's been talking themselves out of achieving their own dream. And drop a comment down below. What dream are you going to start assuming today? I read every single comment, so I'd love to hear what dream you are going to assume is already achieved.